Hi, this is Mr. Miller, and this lesson is a brief introduction as to what genes actually do. So, genes actually carry the instructions for making proteins. And proteins are the chemicals that really work together to determine our traits. So, let's take a look at a couple of examples of how genes determine some of those traits. Okay. First of all, here's one example. On chromosome number 9, there is a gene that has the instructions to make a certain marker protein that is placed on the membranes of our red blood cells. And now this marker protein has a certain function, and it's been called the type A protein, and therefore the red blood cells that have this marker are called type A blood cells. So the gene coded for the marker protein, and that determined our trait of having type A blood. Another example. On chromosome 11, there's a gene that codes for the protein insulin. And of course, when you have lots of insulin, you're fine, but if the gene is damaged and you're not producing proper insulin or enough insulin, then of course you have diabetes type 1. On chromosome 11, there's a gene that produces the hemoglobin protein. And hemoglobin is the protein that has the reddish color and gives a red color to red blood cells. And if your red blood cells have normal hemoglobin in them, they carry oxygen very well. Here's a picture of a sickle cell from a person with sickle cell anemia. In their case, the gene is slightly mutated and it produces a faulty hemoglobin protein, and that hemoglobin protein does not carry oxygen nearly as well as a normal hemoglobin does. Finally, you just read an article about the blue people of Troublesome Creek, and of course on chromosome 22 we actually found that there is a gene for a protein. Do you remember what that protein was? If you remember, it was the enzyme called diapherase. And those individuals that did not have enough diapherase ended up with that bluish tinge to their skin due to a condition called methemoglobinemia. So those are some characteristics and some examples of how genes control our traits. And one thing to take home and to keep in mind is genes carry the instructions to make proteins. Those proteins sometimes work with other proteins, but they determine our traits.